Lesson 2. The Little Horn Power. Memory verse. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Daniel chapter 7, verse 24. Further reading. The Story of Daniel the Prophet by Stephen N. Haskell, pages 94 to 103. Heartbeat. How would you have reacted if over several nights you had a dream about world events which would start in your lifetime and finish when the world ends? Sunday, that terrible beast. The 7th chapter of Daniel speaks about 3 critical last-day events. God considers these events so important that he repeats them 3 times. The first one is the little horn, the second one is the judgment, and the third is Christ's kingdom. Daniel was living in Babylon. He knew about the Medo-Persians rising in the east. History recorded regular trade between Babylon and the Greeks during that period. So, he had no problem interpreting the first 3 beasts or nations in the chapter, but he was troubled about the 4th beast. Notice that God spends more time describing the little horn power than any other power. Question 1. Describe that terrible 4th beast. Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. There was no animal with a character to represent its terrible nature. So a beast without name, having iron teeth, brass nails, and 10 horns, was presented to the prophet. The Story of Daniel the Prophet, pages 92 and 93. Question 2. What is the first identifying mark of the 4th beast? Daniel chapter 7, verse 8. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. By the 4th century, the Roman Empire stopped growing. Other outside tribes began moving into the empire. These new settlers came from the colder north and east, and decided to stay in the mild Mediterranean region. The little horn would come up among the 10 horns, meaning it would arise out of the 10 tribes in Western Europe. The 10 horns represented 10 Germanic tribes called Goths or barbarians, who conquered pagan Rome in AD 476. They were called the Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Vandals, Burgundians, Lombards, Anglo-Saxons, Franks, Huns, Heruli, and Suevi. These 10 tribes became the nations of Western Europe. Then, there came up among them another little horn, which was Papal Rome. Note, they are called by Romans the Germanic tribes, not based on their language, but based on the region where they lived, namely modern-day Luxembourg, Belgium, northern France, Alsace, and Germany. Question 3. What did the little horn do to 3 of the kingdoms of Western Europe? Why? Daniel chapter 7, verse 8 first part, and verse 24. Behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Daniel watched, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before which there were 3 of the first horns plucked by the roots. A new power, one outside the empire, is here represented by the little horn. The 3 divisions which were plucked up were the Heruli in AD 493, the Vandals in AD 545, and the Ostrogoths in AD 538. Justinian, the emperor, was the power that overthrew the 3 kingdoms represented by the 3 horns, and the reason for their overthrow was their adherence to Arianism in opposition to the Orthodox Catholic faith. The Story of Daniel the Prophet, page 95. Monday, the little horn identified. Originally, all Christians belonged to the same church. The Universal Catholic Church was administered by bishops who took care of the flock in their geographic areas. The Bishop of Rome, being the leader of the Christians in the biggest city of the empire, over time got to be a little more important than the others. When the empire began to fragment into different kingdoms, the emperors went west to Constantinople. There was no civil and political leader in the western half of the empire. The person best suited for the job was the bishop in Rome. The bishops of Rome quickly rose in political power as predicted in prophecy. They were different from the other 10 horns or kingdoms because they could blend both political and religious power into one. So, the Catholic Church became the Roman Catholic Church, and while some small pockets of original Christianity remained, most people fell under its power. Question 1. What is another identifying mark of the little horn? Daniel chapter 7, verse 8, last part. Behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Eyes are a symbol of intelligence. This gives us the clue to the type of leadership that would direct the little horn. It would not be a senate, but one man whose word is law. At the head of the papacy sits a man, making decisions that affect the lives and souls of thousands of people. Question 2. Describe another identifying mark of the little horn. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, first part. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. Question 3. The little horn power would blaspheme God. What is blasphemy according to Scripture? Mark chapter 2, verse 7. Why doth this man thus speak blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God only? John chapter 10, verse 33. The Jews answered him, saying, For a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, and because that thou, being a man, makest thyself God. Apply it. Look up the word blasphemy in the dictionary. The following statements confirm how the little horn blasphemes God. We popes hold upon this earth the place of God Almighty. The great encyclical letter of Pope Leo VIII, page 304, published in 1903. The Pope is of so great dignity and so exalted that he is not a mere man, but as it were God, and the Vicar of God. Taken from Lucius Ferrari's Prompia Bibliotheca, Volume 6, page 26. Wednesday, identifying marks of the little horn. Question 1. What does the little horn or papacy do to God's faithful people? Daniel chapter 7, verse 21. The same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, first part. And he shall speak great words against the Most High. The period of papal supremacy was marked by crusades and inquisitions. History reveals to us that the papal power is responsible for the death of millions of people, which included the Waldenses, the Dutch, and thousands of others during the Spanish Inquisition and the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. During the Dark Ages, the popes banned the reading of the Bible because they were afraid that people would get access to the truth. Millions of Christians were burned at the stake for refusing to worship a man on this earth. Question 2. What does the little horn think to do to God's law? Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. He would think to change times and laws. Question 3. Changing God's law is unthinkable, but this great power, the papacy, would try to actually change God's law. What does Paul say about it? 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. For our exhortation was not of deceit, nor of uncleanness, nor in guile, but as we were allowed of God to be put in trust with the gospel, even so we speak, not as pleasing men, but God, which trieth our hearts. Notice how the papacy claims to have the prerogative which belongs to God alone. The Pope can modify divine law, since his power is not of man, but of God, and he acts in the place of God upon earth, with the fullest power of binding and loosing his sheep. Quoted from Lucius Ferrus, Prompia Bibliotheca, Volume 8, Article Papa 2. Apply it. How long did the little horn, or the papacy, hold its power? Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, last part. They shall be given into his hand until a time and times, and the dividing of time. This period is referred to in the Scriptures as 1,260 days, or 42 months. When prophecy mentions the term time, it is equal to 360 days, or 1 year. One prophetic day is equal to 1 literal year. Times is equal to 720 days, or 2 years. Half time is equal to 180 days, or half a year. The periods here mentioned, 40 and 2 months, and 1,260 days, are the same, alike representing the time in which the Church of Christ was to suffer oppression from Rome. The 1,260 years, which were the Dark Ages, of papal supremacy began in AD 538 and would therefore terminate in 1798. At that time, a French army entered Rome and made the Pope a prisoner, and he died in exile. The Great Controversy, page 266. Thursday, can anyone change God's law? The great controversy is going on between Christ and Satan. One of the main issues in this controversy is over how people worship God. The little horn is one of the main antagonists in this great controversy because through it apostasy has entered the Christian church, causing it to mix truth with error. Satan well knows that if we have a deep relationship with God, and if we are well fortified in the Bible, he cannot overcome us with his errors. For this reason, he has cleverly used the little horn to attempt to change God's law. Question 1. Read how God's law was written, then describe how the papacy attempted to change it. Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 to 17. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I the Lord thy God am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor, and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. The papacy has attempted to change the law of God. The second commandment, forbidding image worship, has been dropped from the law, and the fourth commandment has been so changed as to authorize the observance of the first instead of the seventh day as the Sabbath. But papists urge, as a reason for omitting the second commandment, that it is unnecessary, being included in the first, and that they are giving the law exactly as God designed it to be understood. This cannot be the change foretold by the prophet. An intentional, deliberate change is presented. He shall think to change the times and the law. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25 quoted. The change in the fourth commandment exactly fulfills the prophecy. For this the only authority claimed is that of the church. Here the papal power openly sets itself above God. The Great Controversy, page 446. Question 2. Although the whole Bible is inspired by God, what makes the 10 Commandments more important than the rest of the Bible? How many commandments did God write? Exodus chapter 31, verse 18. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. Exodus chapter 34, verse 28. And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He did neither eat bread nor drink water. And he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. As the symbol of God's authority and the embodiment of his will, there was delivered to Moses a copy of the Decalogue, engraved by the finger of God himself upon 2 tables of stone. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 314. God's law in Exodus chapter 20, compared to the 10 Commandments as changed by the papacy. God's first commandment. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. The papacy changed it to read, I am the Lord your God. You shall not have strange gods before me. God's second commandment. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I the Lord thy God am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. The papacy removed this commandment completely. God's third commandment. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. The papacy changed it to read, You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. God's fourth commandment. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor, and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. The papacy changed it to read, Remember to keep holy the Lord's day. God's fifth commandment. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. The papacy changed it to read, Honor your father and mother. God's sixth commandment. Thou shalt not kill. The papacy changed it to read, You shall not kill. God's seventh commandment. Thou shalt not commit adultery. The papacy changed it to read, You shall not commit adultery. God's eighth commandment. Thou shalt not steal. The papacy changed it to read, You shall not steal. God's ninth commandment. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. The papacy changed it to read, You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. God's 10th commandment. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. The papacy changed it by dividing this commandment into two. First, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. Then, you shall not covet your neighbor's goods. The law of God, being a revelation of his will, a transcript of his character, must forever endure as a faithful witness in heaven. Not one command has been annulled. Not a jot or tittle has been changed. Says the psalmist, All his commandments are sure. They stand fast forever and ever. Found in Psalm 119, verse 89, and Psalm 111, verses 7 and 8. The Great Controversy, page 434. Question 3. Another subtle way that Satan tries to discredit God's law today is through the suggestion that we are saved by grace, and therefore we no longer need to keep it. What does the Bible say about this? Read 1 John chapter 3, verse 4, to answer what is sin. Whosoever committeth sin, transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. Read Romans chapter 3, verse 20, to answer what the purpose of the law is. Therefore by the deeds of the law there shall no flesh be justified in his sight, for by the law is the knowledge of sin. Read Romans chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, to answer if grace gives us an excuse to sin. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin, that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we, that are dead to sin, live any longer therein? Read 1 John chapter 1, verse 7, to answer how only can we be cleansed from sin. But if we walk in the light, as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another, and the blood of Jesus Christ his Son cleanseth us from all sin. Read Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9, to answer how then can we be saved. For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. The Bible is clear. We are saved solely by what Jesus Christ does for us through his grace. We keep God's law and do good works because we love him and have a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. But our works are never a means to obtaining that relationship. God saves us by his grace, and then because he has redeemed us, we keep his law. Apply it. Will you now thank Jesus that he saves you by his grace, and then gives you the power to keep his law because you love him? Friday, the end of the little horn. We live in a changeable world, but the good news is that God says, I am the Lord, I change not, Malachi chapter 3, verse 6 quoted. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8 quoted. What God said in the Old Testament is the same as what he says in the New Testament. God's law is as eternal and changeless as God himself. To change his law would be to change his character, and that is impossible. This is a great assurance to us. We serve a stable, steadfast, unmovable, and unchangeable God. Question 1. What will ultimately happen to the little horn power? Daniel chapter 7, verse 11. I beheld, then because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. Question 2. What event shall take place after the little horn power is destroyed? Daniel chapter 7, verses 26 and 27. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion, and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven, shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Question 3. What does God promise to the faithful who refuse to submit to the papacy and to worship Sunday, the false day of worship? Daniel chapter 7, verse 18. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom, and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Apply it. Will you respond to God's loving appeal and listen to the warning about the little horn power?